Welcome to the Awesemo.com MLB Early Bird Podcast for Monday's slate of baseball action. Of course, I am Jason Floyd. As always, I am joined by Terry McBride. Terry, man, happy Sunday evening to you. We're recording this a little later than we normally do based on my broadcasting schedule. But how's the first weekend here of NFL and, of course, baseball action treating you, man?
It's been good. It was a really fun weekend. I was up for 40 hours or so, 36 hours, 40 hours, something like that straight going into Sunday morning. Did a bit of a show, a half-hour injury show this morning while I was crunching out lineups and got everything in before lock. So most of the 1 o'clock games and then kind of crashed for like an hour, caught the second half of the 4 o'clock games. But it was a good Sunday. It was nice to be back in the groove of NFL DFS. Had a profitable first day, took a little third place in one of the FanDue tourneys, so nice little day all around, and it's just really, really fun to get back into it, and as somebody who's kind of pessimistic about it actually being able to get here, I'm really glad that it did. I know you had a long day in doing the broadcast and everything. Yeah,
it was a long day for me. It's, I'm interested to kind of go back and see how the presentation was on film since I'm on the radio broadcast. I'm all attuned to that. So I'm interested to kind of go back and kind of see what obviously I had it on the TV so I could see what it was looking like on Fox. I'm interested to go back to kind of, see how it, and the one thing I would say this is, and I think where these television networks have done a really good job, and baseball, I think kind of it's tough in a way. But where I think when you're watching football, there's a lot of parts where you're not necessarily going to see crowd shots. So yeah. like baseball, it's kind of difficult not to have a crowd shot just because of the way the diamond is, and ball gets hit to the outfield, you're going to see it. But I just know, and watching college football on Saturday, you really did. I thought these networks did a really good job of if you didn't know, you wouldn't realize there were no fans in attendance.
Yeah, that's a great point. And you're right about baseball. Yeah, you're constantly, the way the cameras are around the diamond and everything, you're panning around, you're getting shots across the field and everything, so you're naturally getting that, whereas football's so contained into the grid that, they can just kind of angle those cameras the way that they want them so that they're not actually showing you much. And there were a few that kind of stood out that I saw, but nothing that, to your point, that really made me stop and say, oh, yeah, there's no fans there. Because we were talking about it before we got on, with the sound that they pipe in from NFL films and everything, it was actually really cool. I kept on forgetting that there were no fans in the stands. So I thought the broadcast did great. I think you're going to be pleased with what you see.
Yeah, I can tell you what I had in my ears, and the one thing I will tell you, as someone who I've been doing this for 15 years now, I think that you're going from a viewer at home, I feel like you're going to kind of get more of that raw football type sound, and,
right.
and I think that's what, fans, look, at the end of the day, fans want to sit there on a Sunday afternoon and enjoy their favorite team playing, and we try to bring you the best product we can. But of course, we are here to talk about the MLB slate on Monday, an interesting slate on all the platforms. DraftKings, we've got a 4-10 main slate of 9 games on DraftKings. And of course, if you're over there and you're building your DraftKings lineup, the thing you'll see, Draft Alert, the Pittsburgh versus Cincinnati, Oakland versus Seattle, and St. Louis versus Milwaukee games in this game slate are scheduled for 7 innings. Each is the first game of a doubleheader. Scoring is unchanged, and we will match the official MLB stats. FanDuel, their main slate is 7:35 p.m. of 3 games. Yahoo's main slate, of course, a sponsor of this program, their main slate is at 7:35 p.m. each time. I want to get your take on the DraftKings side of things when people are going to play this main slate, because obviously that's where these big prize pools are at. What is the mindset of those early games that are the first half of a doubleheader?
Yeah, so it's tricky, especially the way that the slates break down tomorrow. Like you said, that DraftKings slate is going to be the one with the big tournaments tomorrow. FanDuel didn't put much into their little 3-gamer at night, competing with the NFL with 2 NFL games and whatever they're doing with the big slate for that, I'm sure. They just don't have much money in baseball. So the DraftKings afternoon tournament, it's interesting. It's a 7-gamer, and 3 of those games are going to be 7-inning first games of a doubleheader. So we're going to have somewhat unpredictable, maybe wacky lineups. We're going to have short opportunities for the hitters, so we're probably going to lose at least a plate appearance for guys at the top of the batting order. So we really have to factor that in. Most of the time that we've seen these 7-inning games, it's been one that's been mixed in with 8 or 9 games on a main slate. I don't think we've seen 3 7-inning games mixed in with 4 regular games. So it's going to be really interesting to weigh how some of these bats are priced, how some of these bats are going to be projecting, and what the upside looks like in the smaller sample size, and whether we're going to take that on. Where I do think we can definitely attack it is with the pitching. Trevor Bauer in particular, you mentioned him before we got on, and I totally agree with you. That is just a killer spot, probably the best pitching spot of the day against the Pirates there. And in a 7-inning game, I don't know that we've had a better opportunity to get a complete game out of a guy all season long. And with Bauer against that Pirates lineup, it could easily be a complete game shutout, 8-9 strikeout game. I mean, he could put up an absolute gem here. So something just went roaring by outside. So yeah, I really like that spot. The other pitchers on that slate, there's a couple good ones. Musgrove is, he's not pitching well, but he's a guy with upside that we like. So he would be kind of in play in that regard as well. And then you've got Jesus Luzardo and Marco Gonzalez pitching on that slate too. So there's a lot of arms. When we get into, we'll go game by game and talk through them. But I really think that pitching is going to be interesting with those 7-inning games in that slate.
Yeah, something that you gotta think about as you're developing those lineups on Monday. Of course, I do want to let you know we are sponsored by Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports, the most trusted name in fantasy sports. Yahoo DFS now includes CSV upload and CSV edit features. So those looking to play multiple lineups, make better choices, choose Yahoo Daily Fantasy. And we mentioned about that Pittsburgh and Reds game at 4-10. Cody Ponce going for the Pirates, Trevor Bauer going for the Reds. I would imagine in terms of the DraftKings main slate that the ownership will be insane for Trevor Bauer.
Yeah, I mean, if we're ever going to see a guy go like 100% owned on a DraftKings slate, that might also be the spot, like I was saying with the complete game. I just think it's just a killer opportunity for Bauer. He's pitching lights out this year. Right? His career's 25.3% strikeouts this year. He's 36%. He's got a 1.74 ERA to a 3.30 xFIP. So, I mean, he's pitching very, very well, even under the covers. 51 2/3 inning sample size. So yeah, getting to a point where it's a little bit of a real season at this point. I mentioned last time he had taken his already really heavy spin fastball and added another 300 RPM to it. And it's just a ridiculous 2,765 RPM average now. And it sets up all his breaking pitches when they dive off the table, or the way that his cutter works off of it, his slider works off of it. Just gets a ton of whiff on those pitches. Brought his cutter usage up too, so he's changing his pitch mix a little bit. He's a tinkerer. He likes to get in there and mess with what he does and how he mixes up his pitches. So he's found something that really, really works, and he should just stop right here and keep things how they are for a few years, because he's one of the best pitchers in baseball right now. Pirates 24th in the league with 32 home runs against right-handed pitching. Last in the league, 136 ISO against righties, 66 WRC plus. Just not a lot to see there in that lineup. So definitely he can mow them down. A big opportunity for him. So he's going to be heavily owned. I think it's going to be worth it. I really do. I don't see how you get away from him there, but we'll see what we find.
Yeah, it was just back on September the 4th. He faced this Pirates team. Did get a loss in that one, but pitched 6 innings, only gave up 1 earned run, 4 runs total. Had 7 strikeouts in that game. He's calling for a great performance against the Cubs, where he had 10 strikeouts, no runs given up in 7 2/3 innings. So, I mean, look, he's going to be very popular. I mean, we always kind of talk about these. Yeah, I guess we don't have a lot of positive things to say about the Pittsburgh Pirates bats. I mean, more times than every once in a while you might look at them in a certain spot and say, okay, you know what? Maybe they're a contrarian stack. Let's, maybe look at going here. But yeah, this is not one of those games.
No, not against Bauer. I mean, maybe if you're throwing out 150 lineups and you're like 85% Bauer, then I guess I can endorse rolling out like 5 Pirates stacks just for the hell of it to have them just in case. But I mean, you got to drill everything else that you're doing if you're doing that. So yeah, it's just not a spot for these bats. One of those spots did pop up the other day. They look kind of good and they connected a little bit. And there are some somewhat okay bats to get to in the middle of this lineup. Brian Hayes is going to be a good player. Colin Moran's got a little pop. Josh Bell's a good player. Gregory Polanco, Brian Reynolds. So there are some good names and good bats in there. They should be better than they perform as a lineup when you see them individually, but just collectively, and it's definitely in this spot, absolutely not.
Now, in terms of, when you look at Cody on the other side going for the Pirates, look, he's the 29th man on the roster for this doubleheader game. Look at, 4-5 innings probably is what you're going to get out of him. That may be, could be as little as 3 innings. Who knows how many innings he goes? But because of it being a 7-inning game, like, what's your take on the Reds bats?
Yes, I don't think I would get to much Cody Ponce. I honestly had written up Joe Musgrove. I had him in the spot earlier. That's what came down with Fangraphs. So I'm just looking at Ponce a little bit here, but not really a guy who's very much on my radar. Like you said, he's kind of a non-prospect, 29th man on the roster here. He's gone. He went 4 innings last time out, 5 2/3 before that. So I mean, if he has a good start, if he makes it a little ways into this game, he could challenge to put up a decent opportunity here, but I think the story is much, much more going to be about the Reds bats on the other side. I liked him as a opportunity against Musgrove, and I think it's much better here. Just overall, Ponce is a right-hander?
Yes.
Yeah, pull that up. Yeah, so the same thing applies. So for the Reds, they're 10th in baseball, 49 home runs against righties this year, 194 ISO, 97 WRC plus, slightly below average. 24.6 strikeout rate, slightly above average, but they walk 12.3% of the time. So I think that those are bats that are definitely in play. There's a lot of lefty bats that we like in that lineup. Jesse Winker comes to mind. Eugenio Suarez is a righty bat that just brutalizes right-handed pitching. We've got Mike Moustakas in there. So a lot of names we know and we like. So I can definitely build with that Reds lineup tomorrow.
Yeah, it's just it's to me
it's the 7-inning game thing though.
Yeah, I know. It's kind of like you look at there and they're the fact that they're the home team. So what happens all of a sudden if they just jump on them early, all of a sudden, there is no 7th inning at bats for them.
Right. That's right. Yeah. That really does limit it. And as I'm talking about it's so hard to keep that in mind as I'm starting to talk about the bats that does limit the upside. And it kind of takes the top off of this offense and what they can do. You could still see a game, but I would definitely focus then on probably no further down than like the 5th hitter in Mike Moustakas. And honestly, that's where everybody's going to go with those bats. So it makes it really, really challenging to get to. You're going to have to drill, a Brian Goodwin in 2 plate appearances if you're going to go to that. He might get a third, if they're really rolling and they put up a huge score. He'll get a third, he'll get a 4th in the early innings. But in the normal course of a game, like a lot of times we'll see a game roll 5-6 innings and then 6-7 runs score late. We're not going to get that opportunity here. So very tricky. Yeah, we have to keep that in mind as we're building with these teams. I got to remember that as we talk.
The next 4-10 game that we got is the Phillies and the Marlins. Pablo Lopez slated to be on the mound for the Marlins, and for the Phillies, Vince Velasquez.
Good old Vince back again. So Vince, I think we know what we're getting in Vince Velasquez. Kind of a wild man when he's on. He can strike guys out. 25.6% strikeout rate for his career, 9.1% walk. Gives up some power, 144 home runs per 9 for his career. 137 whip, just allows too many guys on base. That's been the story of his life. In 20 innings this year, he's got a 5.85 ERA, only a 4x FIP, so he's pitching a little bit better than the back of the baseball card says. 4 home runs allowed, though, in that 20 innings, so again, just giving up power. Home run per 9, 150 to left-handed hitters for his career, 139 to righties, so more power to lefties. He strikes out more righties, strikes out only 23.8% of lefties, 27.3% of righties. So if you're going to attack him with bats from this Marlins team, maybe you roll out some of the lefty bats, Corey Dickerson, somebody like that. Mm-hmm. But the Marlins in general, not a very good team. 29th in baseball, only 27 home runs against righties, is tied with the Pirates for 29th. 136 ISO puts them dead last. 95 WRC plus is okay, like compared to Pittsburgh, who they're tied in last in home runs again in the split. Pittsburgh WRC plus is 66. So comparatively, they're a much better offense than you're getting with the Pirates. but still just not a very good spot for what they've been able to produce. If they're going to do it to a pitcher, Velasquez is a guy who's going to yield them some opportunities. So if you do get that lefty home run, it might come with a few guys on base. So you could pick off a good score from, a cheap Matt Joyce cleaning up. Joyce, it looks like if I have my pricing is all over the place because I had to merge a few different slates together to get my model to work for everything. I think Matt Joyce might be 2,000 on this slate on DraftKings, which would be the minimum. In which case, if he's cleaning up as a lefty in that lineup, I think you can definitely attack Vince Velasquez with him and hope that you pick off that weird grand slam. I don't think a lot of people are going to go to the Marlins there, so could be a good spot.
Yeah, $2,000 on DraftKings for Matt Joyce in that spot. I think if you are looking at rostering some Phillies bats here, you got to kind of, what's going to happen with JT. He had an MRI. Hoskins also, he's day-to-day, so that's something to pay attention to see what the Phillies lineup may be. And, there might be some low-price options in that lineup.
Yeah, definitely. There are guys that we like that typically hit down lineup in that lineup who are good bats and who are carrying pretty cheap price tags. Alec Boehm, top prospect for them, has been hitting like 7th. But if a Realmuto, Rhys Hoskins, somebody like that is out, they might move his big right-handed bat up in the batting order, and then you're getting a 3-hitter, a 5-hitter, somebody like that with a similar kind of a pedigree, honestly, to a Hoskins for only $2,800 in the middle of that lineup. So that could be a killer spot. That's a great call. Another guy similar like that is Adam Hazley. He's been hitting like 9th. Speed and like mid-range power kind of guy. Looks like he's priced at the minimum. Even a veteran like Neil Walker hits from both sides of the plate, first and second base eligibility, only $2,300 over there. So absolutely, keep an eye on what the final lineup looks like. And I think we can probably weaponize some of these Phillies bats. And if I'm not mistaken, this game is a full game, right? It's got a red tag on it on MLB.com, but this is a makeup of a postponed game, but it doesn't have a doubleheader. So I think this is a full makeup game.
Yes,
unless I'm mistaken.
I'll double check that, but I'm pretty sure you're correct on that. It's not a doubleheader aspect.
Yeah. All right. So this one we don't have to worry about the 7 innings. So yeah, I think those Phillies are probably going to be one of the more one of the better spots to attack with bats and roll some of those stacks out for sure.
Yeah, because our doubleheaders are Reds, Pirates, Oakland, and Seattle, and St. Louis and Milwaukee.
Yep, that's
those are 4. Speaking of St. Louis and Milwaukee, we'll move over to that game. Kim's going to be on the hill for the Cardinals. This will be his first scheduled to be his first start since September the 1st, and Limbaum going to be going for the Brewers.
Yeah, so I didn't have a ton of time, so I was trying to look it up in between doing stuff, winding down football and getting my research together and everything, but I wanted to find out if these two had ever dueled one another in the KBO, because they've both got extensive KBO history. But I couldn't find it in my my quick little cursory research. But should be an interesting one. Like you said, Kim's coming back and getting back into the rotation here. He's his last 3 outings, he went 6 and 5 innings, so he's been somewhat stretched out. He's only allowed 1 home run over his 21 2/3 innings over for the year. Nothing really special under the surface about his arsenal. It's a pretty basic 90-mile-an-hour 4-seam fastball. He's got a slider and a curveball. Nothing really exceptional stands out about it when you look into the pitch mix, into the StatCast stuff, but he's doing a good job limiting hard contact, a 91st percentile hard hit rate, 71st in exit velocity, only 6th percentile in strikeout rate, and 21st in whiff, though, so not a ton of strikeout there. 13.3% strikeout guy so far in the show, and he was a low 20s strikeout guy in the KBO, but that's not something that translates. The KBO is not a big strikeout league, so that's kind of a strikeout pitcher there, and I wasn't expecting it to translate, and it's not. So the Brewers, 13th in the league with 17 homers against lefties, 219 ISO, 6th best in baseball, and a 120 WRC+. So we talk about the Brewers not necessarily being as good as we think quite a bit, but that's against righties. Against lefties, they're pretty darn good. So we can definitely get some of these Brewers bats with the caveat, of course, that this is one of those 7-inning games, right?
Yeah,
no,
I mean, I get.
Or is it?
No, it is. It is one of those 7-inning games. I mean, I guess the question is when you look at some of those more expensive Brewers bats, because it's a 7-inning game, does that concern you?
Yeah, it has to. I mean, again, you're taking the top off of your potential plate appearances. So if you consider it just in terms of a cost per plate appearance, and think about your entire slate that way, there are guys that you know are going to get. You can quantify it as like a 4.5 plate appearances, as opposed to the guys on this team are going to get probably 3.5 or 3.2 or something like that. If you really laid it out, so your cost per plate appearance is going to be dramatically affected by that. There is significant upside in some of these bats, particularly in this spot. So I think you can get to a little bit of the top of the lineup between an Avi Garcia, Christian Yelich, Keston Hiura, Jed Jerko. I would stick with that and maybe, attach a Ryan Braun, somebody like that to it and get to some of those righties there. But I really wouldn't go too nuts with it as far as how much you do it. It could be a good second stack to stick in, maybe grab 3 of those bats from the top of the lineup, and we're not asking as much if we're only going with 3 of them as opposed to 5. So limit the requirement for the lineup, and maybe they can deliver a little bit better for us. Just one way of looking at it.
I think this is also where you want to be looking at our ownership projections on Monday and look at these games that are the 7-inning games and look at the ownership projections and see where they line up out of, maybe they're going really low owned, and it might be a spot that you can capitalize on.
Yeah, and I'm sure we're going to talk about that on all the shows tomorrow. I'm sure it's going to be accounted for in everything that Alex talks about and puts out there. Because there are going to be, like we said, 3 out of the 7 games on the DraftKings slate are going to be affected by this. So if we see one of those teams pop up in the stacks ranking, that's going to be, even in that small sample, that's going to be what Alex's model is seeing. So yeah, maybe we can grab it. Maybe we can weaponize that if we're seeing him go dramatically under own. Keep an eye on what the notes are on the page and everything. If Alex has something in the model that doesn't account for the 7 innings, I'm sure he'll call it out and he'll let us know. So definitely keep an eye on that. But yeah, absolutely, it's going to be a very important day to be on top of the data and also on top of the news as far as who's going to even be in these lineups for these first games of these doubleheaders.
Yeah, and of course, if you want to get access to those ownership projections, you got to sign up for an Awesemo Plus MLB Weekly Pass for $15.95. This gives you full access to our leading player projections, ownership projections, and the all-new Top Pitchers tool, and so much more. Get your pass today by heading over to Awesemo.com and sign up for an Awesemo Plus MLB Weekly Pass. Now, the other game that we've got a 7-inning game on, that would be the Athletics and the Mariners. Luzardo going for the A's, Gonzalez going for the M's.
Yeah, so I mentioned it before. This is another spot, couple pitchers that I kind of like. Definitely, I'm a big fan of Luzardo. I think he's in a pretty good spot here against these Mariners. They're 27th with a 130 ISO, 36% below league average WRC plus against lefties this year. 22nd in baseball with only 12 home runs against lefties. Their team slash, as a team, they're hitting 182, 272, 311. So 272 on base as a team against lefties, 182 batting average. That's just ugly. So I think we can really roll some Luzardo out here. He's probably not going to go to the 7 innings. I wouldn't expect him, just because of the way they utilize him and just because he's such a precious prospect for them and an arm they want to take care of. So he's probably not going to be in line for the complete game. But if he's rolling, if he's sitting guys down and breezing through this lineup, there's no reason he can't get there. But I would consider it less upside for that than a Bauer for sure. But he's just pitching great. I mean, he's given up 6 home runs in 45 1/3. Reasonable amount of power to give up in that sample. 39.4% of the time throws a sinker, sets up a curveball and changeup perfectly, gets excellent whiff on both those pitches. Changeup mostly to right-handed hitters. Very good whiff on a heavy spin four-seamer that he uses a low percentage of the time, but when he throws it, it gets swing and miss. So really, really good pitcher. I like him a lot, and I love the strikeout upside for him in this spot against this Mariners lineup. So I definitely think we can get to some Luzardo. And then Marco on the other side, another guy. This Mariners pitching staff, all these weird little lefties that started throwing cutters, and they're not necessarily hard throwers. Some of them. Marco only brings it like 89 miles an hour, 88 miles an hour on his fastball these days. But he's working with that cutter, throwing more cutters, more sinkers, fewer changeups. He's got 3 pitches with around an average whiff rate, so it's good for a guy like him. 22.2% soft contact this year so far, so very good inducing soft contact and limiting hard contact this year. 80th percentile in exit velo, 61st in hard hit rate. So doing pretty well. 56th percentile in strikeout rate, while only the 18th in whiff rate. So that league average whiff stuff is still yielding some strikeouts for him. A's are 24th in the league with just 11 home runs against left-handed pitching, which stuck out to me because there's a bunch of good righties in this lineup. So that's only over 346 plate appearances, so it makes the sample a little wonky. That's 25th in baseball. The Mets are first in baseball with 631, so nearly like double the sample. But that said, they've got a 162 ISO, so it's not a tremendous ISO, and only a 102 WRC plus. So they're not really performing any outstanding way against lefty pitching. So I think we can get to some Marco here. Another guy I don't necessarily love the upside to get to the complete game, but I think he can have a nice start here, and I think he could definitely strike out some of these guys.
Yeah, you look at what Marco's done in his past couple of starts. His last start was against the Rangers, went 7 innings, 7 strikeouts, only gave up 2 runs. Prior to that, he went up against the Angels, where he went 9 innings, he only gave up 1 run. That was a home run, had 8 strikeouts. He had a okay performance against the Padres, had a solid performance against the Dodgers last month. So he has put up some good DFS numbers for us this year.
Yeah, and I mean, I honestly didn't even catch that he had gone that long in those games, so that could put him in line more for the 7 innings. I didn't realize he was pitching quite that deep. And if just listening to what you just read off there, those are some of the best teams in baseball. I heard the Dodgers in there. I mean, there's some good lineups in there. So yeah, pitching really well. And one thing I really love that just jumps out like crazy on him: 2% walk rate on the year. That's excellent. I mean, if you limit the amount of guys you're going to put on base, that's a recipe for winning baseball games and pitching well. So, and he doesn't cost very much, $7,000. Not a bad price tag at all.
Yeah, I mean, good price tag on both sides of this pitching aspect. I mean, it was only $8,300 for Luzardo. I mean, like if you're looking to, maybe you want to go with a Trevor Bauer and you're looking for a cheaper SP2 option on DraftKings, Marco Gonzalez at $7,000 would fit that nicely.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he slots right into that spot, to be honest. And it's kind of interesting now, if we're thinking about it, just taking that opportunity in those 2 7-inning games with the way that those two prices fit together. And even if you wanted to go up and do the same thing with Luzardo, that's a really significant, interesting opportunity with just the way that this slate clicks together. I'm really interested in that. I'm gonna be poking around at that in Cruncher overnight and just really seeing how everything falls together and what you can get to by putting those pitchers together, because that's going to be a really interesting conversation point as we talk about how to build for this afternoon slate tomorrow. Yeah, I got airtime to fill. I'm on both shows tomorrow. So.
Yeah, I was scheduled to be on the NBA show. However, we don't have an NBA game yet tomorrow, so.
That's right. I was like, wait, what happened? I'm so absorbed in football, I have no idea what happened in the outside world at all today.
Oh, it was last night. I'm sitting on the couch watching the Laker game, and I told my wife, I go, yeah, we're rooting for the Rockets. She goes, why? I go, because if the Rockets win, I've got an NBA show on Monday night. And it became pretty evident in that game. There was not going to be a game on Monday night.
Yeah, not much effort in that one.
No. But, we've made it to the last 3 games, so this is a part of your FanDuel main slate, also your Yahoo main slate. So if you're looking to just play the main slate on those sites, we've got Atlanta and Baltimore. Lopez going to be on the hill for the Orioles. Tukey is going to be on the mound for the Braves. On DraftKings pricing, they're both $25. Does either one of those prices intrigue you? I mean, they're both the same price, but is this a game that would you be more looking at the hitting as opposed to the pitching?
So, yes, probably. Answer your last question first. Yes, probably looking more at the hitting than the pitching in general. But that's an interesting price. The 25 on that's a Yahoo price. So compared to where I would expect that Bauer was probably going to be, he wouldn't be on that slate, right? That's just the Correct, 3 games. Yeah. So just thinking that it would depend on where the other guys are. But Tukey in particular, high upside kid going against this Orioles lineup that, regardless of what they've done, I just still do not really have much respect for. And I can't say that he's pitched well, because I mean he got sent back down. He's got an ugly ERA, But we've seen flashes. We've seen some strikeout upside. I think 28 strikeouts in 21 and 2/3 innings so far this year. This will be his first action since August 23rd. He was getting decent whiff on splitter and his breaking balls, but everything was just getting hit hard. He was just kind of leaving stuff flat in the zone and just kind of making the mistakes that a young pitcher makes. So he's got the stuff. He's a high-end prospect. We could see him put up a start. Like if we really had something that we wanted to get to with that money and we could justify it that way, then yeah, I think we could use Tukey in that regard. I don't think I would do it on the other side attacking these Braves bats, though. That seems a recipe for disaster going to Jorge Lopez in that spot. So Tukey would be your man if you're doing that for sure. But like I said, it would have to be justified by having some significant spend on some bats or something like that.
Well, if you want to spend some money on some bats on DK, just go to the Atlanta Braves. You got Acuna at 6,000, Freeman 5,500, Ozuna 5,400, Swanson 5,100, Markakis 4,800. I mean, if you were thinking about an Atlanta stack, it's going to cost you.
Yeah, they're pricey, and we've seen DK do a good job with that this year. They've kept the pricey and they've kept the very good teams very pricey, and they've put it on the right bats and they've put it on the right positions. So they've made it interesting to build with some of these pricey teams and really made the game challenging. So I really like what they're doing, and I think that you can get to some of these Braves bats in interesting ways. They're excellent against righties. They are sitting third in the league with 66 home runs against righties. Third in the league, 235 ISO. Second in the league, 131 WRC plus, so 31% better than average creating runs against right-handed pitching. Just a killer spot for them. And their right-handed hitters hit same-handed pitching really well and hit it for power like we've discussed. So you can get down to Austin Riley, Adam Duvall in the back end of this lineup, and people might be getting off of them. They think of Duvall as a heavy strikeout guy, an all-or-nothing home run guy who maybe is a splits guy, and he's really not. He can handle right-handed pitching. Austin Riley handles it even better. So I think both of those guys are in play here. And then we know the quality of Darno, Swanson, Ozuna on the right side of the plate. So even if you were only building with the right-handed bats, you could save money and still have significant upside in that stack. But, of course, I don't want to leave Freddie Freeman out of things. And then there's Ronnie Acuna Jr. He's a righty, but, my gosh, he's all world. I don't care that he costs $6,000. I want him in my stack. Talk about a guy. Do you think he's got a legit shot to go 50-50 one year?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, if anybody's
the key with him is just going to be, stay healthy.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, yeah, I would think that, when we get back into a 162 game schedule, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we saw the upset. He was tracking toward that at one point in the season last year and fell a little short, but, I mean, he is right there. Just the best option, I think, for just the blend of power and speed in the league right now. It's just phenomenal. So, yeah, get him in your lineups for sure if you're building with Braves.
Now, look, if you wanted to be contrarian and go with the Orioles stack, you're going to be able to save some money in terms of your roster construction.
Yeah, and we can justify it on that regard. And, look, I dismissed it a little bit, but they have been performing. Even taking Santander out of the lineup, there are still some pieces we can work with in there. The active roster is 13th with 44 home runs against righties, 15th with 176 ISO, so not the greatest ISO, but not terrible either, right in the middle of the league, and above average, 105 WRC plus, so creating runs a little bit better than the average. So against a kid that we've seen make mistakes, a kid that we've seen struggle, we'll talk about him in the complete opposite terms when I was saying we could potentially play him. He is a kid who makes mistakes. He is a kid who struggles, and this is his first turn through the league. So, yeah, once they see him, maybe he gets to them, strikes out a few guys the first time through the order. The second time, the third time through the order, they're going to get to him. They're going to have the opportunity to get to him. You've got bats like Ryan Mountcastle. He's a rookie as well, but just very high-end kid. He's up to hitting third lately in the order where Santander left off. And then you can get to Renato Nunez. DJ Stewart's been hitting for some power. Pedro Severino could be a sneaky catcher play if he's in the lineup hitting cleanup for this team. So there are things you can build with. And to your point, they're super cheap. So they could definitely click together. You could game stack this and potentially get away with it that way if you just wanted to put these two teams together and attack two pitchers who might give up quite a few runs tomorrow. The game's also in a hitter's park. So the game stack here could be in play.
Moving on, next we've got the Twins and the White Sox. Barrios going for the Twins. Cease going for the White Sox. Barrios on Yahoo, $39. Dylan Cease, $36 on Yahoo.
Interesting. Those are those are pretty good prices from what I know of just the way that the Yahoo prices range. But I guess, are those the top end for the 3-gamer?
3-gamer, the top end would be, let's get that to X out there if it would.
We got Kershaw and Lamet.
Yeah, you got Kershaw and Lamet. They are, we'll talk about them here momentarily. They are $52 and $51.
Yeah, so that makes sense. So, yeah, look, if you're building with, I mean, if you want to get to any bats, I would imagine on Yahoo, grab Touki Toussaint and grab one of these guys. Grab Berrios probably. Well, Berrios going against the White Sox. It's tricky. They're both in tough spots, but they're both good pitchers. And for that money, you'll be able to build with any bats that you want, is I guess my point. It's difficult. It is difficult to recommend either one against these offenses. If I was recommending one, I would probably say go to Berrios, despite the matchup against the White Sox. Sox 7th in the league, 51 home runs against righties, 14th with a 179 ISO, WRC plus 9% above average, but they strike out 25.3% of the time, and they only walk 7.2% of the time in the split. So it could be a good upside game, a good strikeout game for Berrios. He's been pitching well his last few starts, stealing a blurb from Major League from MLB.com. Triple slash 183, 272, 280 allowed over his last 4, and he struck out 31 in 22 and 2/3. So just digging in a little bit, he's allowing a lot of medium contact this year, and less hard contact, and also less soft contact. His velocity on his fastball is up about 1 mile an hour. He's throwing it a little bit less often, but he's throwing it by guys a little bit more. So it's been an interesting impact, not an overly significant impact to his pitch mix, but interesting. 71st percentile in strikeout rate, so he's doing pretty well in Ks. So I think we can get to him here, and I like the price as far as Yahoo goes if you want to go down and do weird things with the bats like we said, or as like a mid-range option, pay up for one of those heavy high-end pitchers and put him there. Cease on the other side, pitcher that I like. We're expecting this kid to come out, and we're expecting him to eventually become a strikeout pitcher, really emerge. But so far this year, only 15.4% strikeout. The walk rate is the same, so it's not like he's really focusing on control and losing his strikeouts but not walking anybody. So I was trying to figure out what's up, and the only thing that I can see different in anything that he's doing is he's throwing his slider with 200 RPMs more spin. And that pitch is working well for him. But what I'm thinking is maybe something about either the release or how he's gripping the ball, something he's doing before the throw is tipping what he's doing with his curveball, because his curveball is not getting nearly as much whiff, and it's getting hit really hard. So something's up with his curve as near as I can tell. And like I said, it's either that he's just happening to leave it flat and it's happenstance, or if we can find something, I think maybe he's tipping it, but that's just me theorizing and guessing and stuff. But something is up with that pitch in particular. So I'm curious to see what happens. Twins are 4th in baseball with 59 home runs, 212 ISO, 110 WRC plus, but they also strike out, 25.2% strikeout against righties. So it could be a decent strikeout spot if the stuff is working for the kid, which is always the question with him. He always gives up some power too. 182 career home run per 9 over 119 inning sample. So something to think about with the Twins bats there.
Yeah, I mean, look, you've got expensive bats on both sides, but it feels like with the White Sox, it's like, Abreu the other day when he hit those 2 home runs. If you didn't have him in your lineup, you weren't going to cash big. I mean, that's just, yes, their bats are expensive, but more times than not, I mean, Anderson, what more can you say about what this kid's done this year?
Yeah, I mean, he is quietly just one of the best players in baseball the last couple of years, really. I mean, he has just come on like crazy. And he was a prospect. He's a kid. I mentioned my dynasty league all the time. I'm proud that I've had him in my dynasty league the last few years. But honestly, I kind of lucked into him. I acquired him in a trade. Wasn't a kid that was like a real super high-end prospect that had been on my radar anyway, and has just absolutely delivered again and again. Last year, 518 plate appearances. He hit 18 home runs, stole 17 bases, 335, 357, 508 slash with a 173 ISO. This year, over 160, he's at 358, 400, 581 slash with a 223 ISO, 68% above average WRC plus, 7 homers, 5 stolen bases. We talk about power and speed combo upside guys. This is absolutely one of them. He plays a premium position where some of the best bats in the sport reside. But like I said, he is quietly one of them, and he deserves every dime of that 5,400 price tag. So I never mind paying up for Timmy. I like getting to him, and I feel like sometimes when his price goes up, he's somebody that people say, wow, 5,400 for Tim Anderson. I'd rather have Tatis. I'd rather have Story. I'd rather have this guy, that guy. So sometimes he doesn't get the ownership that he warrants. So I can definitely justify Timmy and all the rest of those pricey White Sox bats as well. Pretty much every slate. We're not seeing the explosive home run numbers in my model that we saw for that team the last few days, but they're still pretty good. The high end of the average part of my meter there, and just projection wise, just very good. DFS projections. So I like the spot as always for the White Sox here too.
And our final game of the night, great pitching matchup between the Dodgers and the Padres. Lament going for the Padres, and expected that it's going to be Clayton Kershaw getting the start for the Dodgers. Clayton did not have a good outing. The last time out, if you went there and paid up for him when he was taking on the D-backs, did not work out for you. And Dust Lament, 68 strikeouts on the season.
Yeah, we talk about it every time he pitches. He's such a good strikeout pitcher. And he's a guy that would be regarded as among the best in baseball if he'd been healthy the last few. So love to see him doing what he's doing. He's a kid I like to get to. When I was putting together my notes for the show, I remembered that I had a lot of Kershaw on that last time out, and I was like, oh, yeah, let me look up so I can get down the – nah, you know what? I don't need to remember that because, that didn't go well last time. But I tell you what, maybe I'm a glutton for punishment, but I'm going to go right back to him here. He's Clay Kershaw. I am always happy to put him in my lineup. I get a pretty good projection, not like a Clay Kershaw projection for him here because of the lineup that he's going against. This Padres team, fifth in baseball, 21 home runs against lefties in only 495 plate appearances. So if we remember that split we were talking about before, the Mets are first in baseball at 631, and they only have 22 home runs, one more than this team. So the Pods hit home runs off of lefties. They can generate some power here. 13th in the league, 187 ISO, only a 104 WRC plus, so not generating quite as many runs as we might expect for that ability to hit homers, but just an offense we like. But I think Clay is up to the task. 28% strikeout rate this year. He had been down to just 23.8 in 2018, and then back up to 26.8 in 2019. So it's nice to see the increasing trend and him, continuing to figure out how to pitch it as an older guy, a guy who's been through some injuries and everything, and he's doing it well. 1.98 ERA this year, 2.99 xFIP in his 41 innings. So he's doing what he does. Same stuff, same mix. Four-seamer, slider, curveball, good whiff on all three. Nothing really changed. Nothing overly noteworthy to worry about. So I think we can get to him. And then on the other side, like I said, Lamet, last time out against Colorado, 7 2/3, 11 strikeouts, 6 hits, no runs, no walks. He had given up before that start. He had given up 1 home run in each of the 5 starts before it, but he was still striking out guys. 47.5% whiff on his slider, just a sick pitch. Works off of a 97-mile-an-hour heavy spin fastball that's way up in the zone, and then that thing just dives off the plate. So guys can't touch it. Love the kid, love the spot. Dodgers, 16th in baseball against lefties with 15 home runs, 23rd with a 151 ISO, 97 WRC plus. So they're around league average creating runs, and they're 9th best at limiting strikeouts against lefties at just 21.8%. So it's an interesting spot for Lamet in that the Dodgers don't necessarily generate the tremendous amount of runs that we might normally associate with their offense, although there are some very, very good right-handed hitters in this offense. But they don't strike out as much as a guy like Lamet might be able to get to. So I'm very curious to see how he ranks out for Alex. He ranks out. He would definitely be in play for me for the projection I'm getting on him. But it is a big price tag going up against this Dodgers lineup. Bigger on FanDuel, only 91 on DraftKings. 10-1 on FanDuel is harder to get to. So tricky spot there.
Obviously, a lot of expensive bats in this game. Obviously when you talk about the Pods, it always starts with Tatis and Machado. Obviously the Dodgers, Betts and Bellinger. I was maybe kind of looking at Cody Bellinger going up to the right-hander here. Maybe that could be a spot if you want to pay up for somebody.
Yeah, I am always happy to pay up for Cody Bellinger. I mean, he is, to me, one of the best bats in baseball. One of the immense upside. If you're betting on somebody who's going to hit 600 home runs out of this generation, he is one of the prime candidates to put your money on. So absolutely, I would have no qualms about rolling out Cody Bellinger at any price. First base and outfield eligibility, so you can flip them around. You can get to interesting constructions. And that's one thing I like about building with this Dodgers lineup a lot of the time on DK. You've got Muncy with first and third base eligibility when Taylor's in the lineup. He's got shortstop and outfield eligibility. I think one or two other guys in the lineup have different positional eligibility. So there's some flex, and there's some cheaper guys on the back end who are definitely in play. You get in a lefty-righty matchup, you get a Matt Beaty, a Gavin Lux in the lineup. Each of those guys, not all that expensive, doesn't typically draw a ton of ownership. Hitting toward the back end of the owner, so you're always worried, you always have to consider anyway that you're sacrificing that plate appearance. But those are significant lefty bats to get to. So I like to build with this Dodgers lineup, and probably will, particularly if I'm paying that much to get to Lamet in some other spots, I probably will roll out some Dodgers on the other side of it.
And, of course, coming up on Monday morning, you'll be a part of the MLB DFS strategy show. Be yourself and Jake, discussing some of the various aspects that we've talked about here and going further detail. Also, don't forget to be sure to check out MLB Live Before Lock, by the way, 3 p.m. Eastern time, as you'll be with Lofty. So a little earlier MLB Live Before Lock, so be sure to check out that. Also, for our football fans, we do have a great promo that is going on until September the 15th, and that is sign up today for an Awesemo Plus NFL Weekly Pass for 50% off when you use the promo code REDZONE at checkout. That's $7.50 for 1 week of Awesemo Plus NFL. This gives you access to all of Awesemo's leading player projections, ownership projections, top stacks, and more for NFL DFS. As I mentioned, this is a limited time offer. Is valid through September 15th. So head over to awesemo.com to sign up for that pass today. Make sure you use that code REDZONE to take advantage of that deal. Terry, anything else you want to mention for everybody before we get out of here?
I think you hit the prime points. We're going to be a little early on the Live Before Lock tomorrow, and I'm going to be on both of the shows, so I'll talk to everybody tomorrow. I'll try and commit to memory which of these games are doubleheaders by then. Catch my quick hits will be coming out. I'm going to be writing it after we get off the air here, and then I'll be on the morning show, crank out stack slants in the afternoon, and then jump right back on the air and talk more baseball. So it's going to be a big barrage of baseball tomorrow, and with some alliteration.
And, of course, be locked here on the Awesemo YouTube channel, also on our podcast channel as well, to get access to all of these shows. So that's going to do it for this edition of the MLB Early Bird Podcast.